How to access enthusiasm for your life when times are feeling a bit unstable. That's what we're going to be chatting about this today in Enthusiastically Spiritual. So, hey, Tom, ready to chat?
I'm ready to chat.
All right. So, unstable, being not feeling secure and grounded. I know for myself that I've noticed, and I've actually sometimes lately have been feeling a bit myself that way.
What? Unstable?
Yeah, just unstable, and it's primarily when I tune into kind of what's going on energetically in the bigger picture. And I know we talk a lot about that on Spiritual Perspectives, Discerning News, about kind of what's going on in the world. But in this podcast, we always like to bring it back down to really us, because it's about how we roll with feeling enthusiasm.
Yeah, what strikes me is that whenever my security is threatened, inner security, that I'm going to lose something, I'm going to have to struggle or suffer through something, that's those times when I can lose enthusiasm. And also meaning. If there's not meaning, I feel like I'm just going through the motions and I've lost the purpose or the meaning for my activities. Those emotions can get stimulated.
Right. And I know right now too, with this time frame we're moving through, that a lot of people that I've come in contact with have felt like there's something coming, we're not quite certain, and what is it going to look like? And I think that's part of the instability that I also have felt lately, is because I feel very secure and stable in what I'm currently doing, my job.
Mm-hmm.
And I know we talked about this a little while ago. This morning, we regrouped in our green room, AKA living room, about, the importance of staying in the present. I think that's one key to all of this instability, is being in the now, staying in the present, and recognizing that whatever I'm doing, or you're doing out there, listeners, at the moment, how to feel fulfilled and truly involved in what you're doing at this moment, even if it's maybe not what's coming down the road or what we might be, shifting into to change what, our destination or journey, but really staying in the now and present.
I had that insight earlier in the week from my guidance that even though, the things that I'm involved with, I'm getting used to them and I know what I'm doing. And, sometimes people would say that in the past I'd get a little bored, or I'd go, well, I'm not going to stay here forever. I'm not going to do this forever. So I would get half-hearted into what I was doing, almost like, well, why really put out if I'm not going to do this, forever, or, past a certain period of time.
In the military, we call that when you're short. People just don't give a shit. They're short. Like you're leaving from that base to the next base.
Wow, that's a great way to phrase it. Just that kind of, everybody can relate to that, a bit. Or a lot of people could. So for me, what I realize is that it's important that I get the nuances of what I'm there to learn. And really what I'm talking about is not so much the intellectual stuff that, the procedures that I have to memorize, or the phrases and the speeches or steps you take to, accomplish something in the physical world or communicate to someone. It's more about my reactions and unfolding a smoother, more fulfilling way, to move through my opportunities.
Yeah, it's interesting too, because moving through the opportunities, I myself have to remember that, I'm on my own journey. I'm working with other people. I'm working with, obviously you and in this business. I'm working with my mom and her business and the business of family. And not every person that I come in contact with is going to understand what I'm going through because of my opportunity. It's not theirs, right? But there may be influences or outcomes that come from the choices I make in my opportunity. And I think that's a big thing to just consider whenever, for myself, I'm considering more deeply these days, because of the fact that I'm more aware of how others feel around situations. And just like the other day, I was talking to my mom on the way home from one of your gigs in the car, and I said, Mom, I am so fulfilled in my job, which again, I've shared on this podcast, I do invoicing and work with, with architectures, with landscape architecture. So it can be very intellectual, but yet also very creative. So there's a nice balance there, but I'm very fulfilled in what I'm doing, but I know it's not my forever job. I know that, doing my spiritual work truly is what I'm here to do, even though when I say that, I feel like everything I do is my spiritual work.
Mm-hmm.
So I should just say maybe there's a different variation of my spiritual work that'll be coming down the road. And I said, to my mom, I said, I don't know quite when that shift is going to happen. And, it could be this year, it could be 5 years. And she's like, well, it feels to me, this is from her perspective, right? From her living life and her wisdom. Well, it feels like it could be in your 70s. Yeah, that's when I had my major shift. And so it's interesting. I want to bring that forth because it's interesting how when we are talking and just sharing with other people, they come in with their wisdom and the way they did things. And it may not be exactly how myself or you listeners are doing things.
Well, for me, it's when if there's not some meaning behind what I'm doing, if I'm not really fulfilling my purpose, then I'll get bored. And then I start going through things, or I have in the past, particularly like in an intellectual way and almost like a robot. But fulfillment is more fun. Fulfillment is more fulfilling. And so it's important that I work with spirit. So that's why I've explored, more the spiritual side of things, because the physical side or the physical, emotions that we go through can only take us so far. You'll often hear about people that, quote, get rich or, have a lot of money and say a big house and that kind of thing. And yet they're unfulfilled. They're bored.
Right.
There's nothing wrong with any of those things, money or big houses or achievement. But if I don't have those spiritual goals as well as the physical goals, then it always feels like something's being, left out. There's something missing. And many of our listeners can probably relate to that. They start exploring other avenues of spirituality or becoming more aware of different ways of thinking about things because they, have hit that. Not everybody has. I mean, other people are just moving through, evolving through, becoming affluent. And, so what do you think about all that?
Well, I know the other day we were talking about the instability that a lot of people are feeling right now and how you and I both noticed that there's been a rise, a rise in Christianity, a rise in people finding religion again. And we were saying, and, I'll just, say we, because we were just talking about this the other day, but how interesting it is because when people feel unstable, they look for something for stability. And I know we've had people that we've been close to that have gone through, traumatic events or time of great upheaval within their world. And then they find Christianity or they find, a type of religion that gives them that stability that they're looking for. And I think it's interesting, especially with, really diving into the spiritual part of us, which every person on the planet has a spiritual part, and how that's really about looking more inward. Because religion is looking on the outside. Someone outside is telling you, God is telling you, or Jesus is telling you, or the pastor or the minister is telling you how to live your life. And then when you go out the door, you got to figure out how the hell to do it yourself. And that's when, honestly, your own inner wisdom comes into play. So I know you grew up Catholic, Tom, and now what's your take on that? Because we were just going over to the day.
Yeah, I think it's great when people look for those positive, loving guidelines and procedures that the church and many religions, will talk about. There's a lot of common denominators there. The important thing is that I, love your neighbor, but how many of us feel that? That's something we've talked about before. It's like, okay, well, I'm supposed to. So we work through intellectual ideas of what love is. And it's not that it's all bad. It's actually if you don't have anything else, to have that positive structure from, from the outer is a good thing. It keeps you alive. It keeps you experiencing life. But there's a point where people know that there's something more. What am I? I've done this. I've got experience in it, but there's something missing. It doesn't seem to quite work. That would be, my journey, and that my parents were two different types of people. And in fact, I often share that my father was more of the old school of you fear God, and my mother was more, no, you love God. And I was raised in the era of Pope John, who was great at kind of reestablishing more of a feeling, loving, vibration into the church at that time. So, but how do I make it practical? Because my father had issues. He would swear like a, drunken sailor, like a
He was
former
a Marine.
He would, he could be very harsh. He could really lose his temper. And great provider and very smart and a wonderful, wonderful person in many ways. Great leader. With his family, took care of his family. Very positive person from that point of view. But on my mother's side, I mean, she was so sensitive that she, had mental illness, and nobody really understood it at the time. So I said, there's got to be a better way. That was one of the ways I would describe this. Isn't, I had an affinity for there's something more out there. There's more to life than just this physical body. And it was easy for me to, I felt there was more, that there was a grand design or God or angels or that kind of thing. So, for me, my evolution is for folks who've been through that, then I said, but I'm looking, I had a search for sort of a better way. And then you might say mystical truths or hidden truths, which really aren't mystical or hidden at all. It's just we're not as aware of them, or we've been programmed to think otherwise, that I don't have my own answers, that I don't have my own wisdom. I need somebody to tell me from outside. So all things are good. There's truth in all things. Not one thing has all the truth. But the thing that's worked for me best is learning to work with my inner wisdom and sensitivity, my feelings, and work with my guidance. Inner guidance is kind of a system we have. So there we go.
Yeah, so I'm glad you mentioned that about feeling and about, the church and how does it feel. So, because I grew up without any religion, but I dabbled, especially I would say it was, when I was a little kid, I went to, what is it called in the summer when they do Vacation Bible School. I did that. I'll be honest with you. I did that for the cookies and the punch and the songs. I still remember the songs to this day. And so, but I was not affiliated with any religion. My mom grew up a certain one. My dad grew up Catholic. And so when I was in high school, I would go with certain friends to different congregations. And I really felt, I'll be honest with you, enthusiasm. And then when and that's the feeling I had, it like lit me up. And it was interesting because I wasn't exploring it to the depth of like, oh, what's this really about? Or I want to read the Bible, or I want to come to come on a Sunday and learn the sermon. But no, it was about the feeling. So when I went in the military, every Sunday we would have a church was open, and they would have a lineup of all these people that were like ahead of us in the in our basic training, and they were like cheering us on and welcome, and oh my God, I was so filled with enthusiasm. So and I went every single Sunday, and we were obviously in boot camp for 6 weeks, and it was a place where you were alone. I was alone. I was lonely. No one was there, and it just filled me up with enthusiasm. But then as I got older, and I knew more and more, some people that were into religion or had a religious bent to them, and they weren't quite the people I wanted to. They didn't inspire enthusiasm within me. That's what I'll say.
Right. And I think we've all met folks that were somewhat hypocritical, and they go to church on Sunday, but they don't bring it home with them, or they don't internalize those things, so to speak. But I found that searching spiritually and the programs that I've been involved with, and For example, we have a reawakening subscription, through the Way Showers College. It builds upon those positive ideas in religion, about love and uh, being good to your neighbor and helping each other because it feels good, as opposed to more of a religious concept. And not all religions believe this, and not people in every, that practice religions believe these things, but that, it's got to be hard and a struggle. So there's some confusion there. And, it's great. I mean, I certainly got a lot out of it. Like you're sharing, positive energy feels good.
It really does.
To be positive, to be loving.
Yes.
That's our true nature as a soul. That's our true feelings. We're accomplishment oriented. We want to learn and grow. We desire that. We desire to evolve and for things to be better for us as individuals.
You have set your foundation and are awake spiritually, but the day-to-day grind is still a challenge. To support this moment in time is the monthly Reawaken membership. This monthly membership offers you a deeper dive into what you're feeling energetically and ways to gain more insights and awarenesses on how you move through it all. For pennies a day, you'll receive the Wayshores philosophy and a compact home study course of the month created by the Wayshores College. A bonus to this service is a monthly live regrouping with TNT SpiritWorks, offered in 2 time zones. So no matter where you are reawakening in the world, you can join real people online and regroup what is going on for yourself. This can create more inner stability, peace, feeling grounded, and awareness from within that you are not alone moving through your journey. Check out the link in the show notes to start reawakening on a deeper level today.
Getting back to what we were talking about is that when we lose that enthusiasm, it's often because our security is threatened. And when our security is threatened, we look for hope. And, there's people find hope in religion. And so as long as it's serving a positive function for, as long as it's reinforcing the positive aspects of who we are as a soul, I think it's great. It's just, I found that I needed to move beyond it.
So some keys for accessing enthusiasm when things feel unsafe and unstable right now. So let's talk about that. So we talked about understanding, who you are as a soul, recognizing that, you have everything inside of you that can access the enthusiasm for what you're doing. And that fulfillment, being in the now and staying in the present versus worrying about what you did in the past or what's coming ahead. It's all about right now. This is a time of really feeling more and feeling that enthusiasm so you can move into what's coming next.
Yeah, and there's tools and techniques that you can practice, like spiritual cleansing. There's techniques that help build energy. So once I became more aware of my own inner wisdom and that I have answers for my life, that turns back on my enthusiasm. So a lot of growth for me is just learning not to just buy into the old concepts, like, oh, life is hard, or I'm a little worm, I'm here to struggle, that kind of thing. So I guess getting back to what we kind of opened up with is that it can be, for me, it's been a little bit of a challenge to go, hey, I feel like I've learned like 80% of what I need to learn here. Now I'm getting a little bit bored, but sometimes the refinement comes from working with my guidance and realizing I'm just practicing so that I can utilize my energy and the positive energy available to me from the universe to create more of the life that I desire, more of that fulfillment. All of a sudden my enthusiasm turns on. If I feel like there's a solution, I'm enthusiastic about it.
Yeah, for myself, I think the one way that I've accessed enthusiasm is recognizing, like I said a little bit earlier in this episode, is that, no one knows what I've come to do. And so only I, through my own development of recognizing who I am as a soul and my spiritual part and how to work with that in the, in balance with my intellect and my heart and everything else, right? It's all in balance. But once I recognized who I am and the importance of it's really my journey along with others who are, either standing side by side me or walking with me or enjoying the journey as I'm going through. But that was a big key for me is no one else knows what I've come to do. And I'll be honest with you, sometimes I don't even know what the hell I came to do, but but I know I'm having fun along the way. and I'm accessing my inner enthusiasm for whatever it looks like. Like right now, if I'm working at a landscape architect firm and getting fulfilled and enjoying the journey, awesome. I'm filled with enthusiasm. And then who knows what's coming down the road and behind me, the things I did, I was enthusiastic about. So that to me is a big key, is really recognizing that it's our own personal journeys to really, instill and move forward with.
Yeah. It's all about,
Yeah.
It's funny that you'll say, you are walking enthusiasm.
Except for when I'm not. No.
Yeah. Hardly though. It passes quickly with you. So you're a great example of that joie de vivre, that life, the life spirit, and just taking every opportunity to have the fun that you want to have and not denying yourself, that fun. And yet you're still of service to people and you're good to people. And, I know you've shared about, getting inspired by spirit and then helping out. I think one of the major areas of confusion we have is that by somehow being a good person, that's hard. And that, it's, we're here to struggle. So from the spiritual perspective, we're here to be successful and more successful. Our guidance, our spiritual helpers have mastered those areas. So they're here. I was tuning in the other day while we were talking.
I love when you tune in, Tom.
Yeah, the guidance said, they're really excited and enthused. Enthusiastic is probably the best way. Is that if they could open our eyes to how beautiful we are and how our life is and the expanse of all our opportunity, that's what they're helping us with. They're helping us step by step, move towards that mastery. And at the same time, they have a lot of respect for what we've already, mastered as individuals. So I don't know. For me, what turns me on is when I know what my spiritual purpose is in every situation. I get beyond I can take that enthusiasm, living in the now, further into my opportunity. But it's a great, what you said about being the short timer in the service is that, there's a lot of times we all have, jobs or we do work and we go, I know I'm not going to be here forever. And so then there's like a half-hearted commitment.
Start slacking.
Yeah. When really, to really prepare for the next opportunity, it's great to just be fully involved and very sincere about our service and balance service with others with what I'm getting out of it. So it's a step-by-step process. Like it takes practice. I still fall into old habits once in a while. I get a little gossipy or
You're human, Tom.
little fear moves in and, so that's the thing that's been occurring to me lately, which keeps my enthusiasm high, is that not just going, okay, yep, I could have done that a little bit better. Here's the part I did do well. Let's build on that positive part. It's easier to build from the positive than it is to, build from negative. Positive builds positive.
Well said. So we hope that we gave you some keys of accessing more enthusiasm for what you've come to do and for your daily life and for really getting past those times when you may feel unstable and may feel out of balance or out of sorts. Just how to reach in and grab some more of that enthusiasm for yourself. And
yeah, your guidance is always there. Your inner wisdom is always there to work with, and your own ESP and sensitivity is always there in the way of the 4 gifts. And
yep. And you can also check out our Reawaken membership that we just started in 2026. It's a great way to gather insights for yourself month by month with the new energies of what's going on and accessing how to move through that energy in your timing. I think that's the most important thing, is your timing. So Are we done, Tom?
I think we're done.
All right. So we want to thank you so much for listening to another episode of Enthusiastically Spiritual. Wherever you're at in the world, we do notice where you're at in the world. We look at our stats and we are just so grateful that you listen in from different parts of the world, and we are honored. So until next time, just remember that life is too short to not be enthusiastic about your unique journey. To keep the enthusiasm going, please like, subscribe, or comment below. We would love to hear from you.